Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Rotten Horror Picture Show, the horror movie podcast where we talk about films off of the Rotten Tomatoes 200 Greatest Horror Movies of All Time list. My name is Clay, and with me, as always, is Amanda. Amanda, how are you doing?
I'm good, and I would just like to say you've gotten very good at that intro.
Yeah, it only took me 41 episodes, but I've got it down pat now.
We're there. We did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to think of whether or not I should start this show by singing my own rendition of Blue Moon.
Oh, you should have.
No, I don't want to get a copyright notice.
Oh,
so.
okay. Fair.
With that in mind, what are we covering today? We're doing number 131, which is an American Werewolf in London from 1981. It has a 88% score on the Rotten Tomato meter. Had you seen this one before?
I had long ago when I was much too young to be watching See You Next Wednesday.
Yes. Excellent. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about that joke because it's well, I guess we can talk about it now. It's a long running joke in John Landis movies.
Yes.
Where he's always got that phrase always comes up in some fashion in a bunch of his movies. It shows up in the Thriller video.
It's definitely one of those ones where you can tell that he probably giggles every time he hears it.
Definitely.
Like it's just it's for him.
Yeah. And I have to say the payoff in this of what See You Next Wednesday ends is very much worth it.
Yes.
It is a hilarious porno movie. And it's John Landis comes from a comedy tradition. Did he direct Animal House?
Yes.
I think he directed Animal House. He did The Blues Brothers.
Yeah. Isn't he like a National Lampoon person too?
Yeah. And I believe he was also involved in Kentucky Fried Movie, which is done by the guys who did Airplane.
Oh, okay.
And that porno, See You Next Wednesday, is very, very much in the style of what Kentucky Fried Movie is.
Got it.
It's like, if I remember correctly, Kentucky Fried Movie is kind of like... It's a bunch of parodies that are set up kind of like your surfing channels or something. It's been a very, very long time since I've seen
interdimensional cable.
Yeah, basically, yes. It also shows up in Thriller as what is scrawled in the victim's blood after in the movie that Michael Jackson and his date are watching.
God, now this whole thing, by the way, has just made me want to watch Thriller.
Well, I think we might at some point because I was trying to think about what to do for Halloween. Halloween's going to be here sooner than you think.
I know.
Which I'm both excited about and bummed out about because the years go by too fast. But it might be fun to do Thriller. It's not on the list. I honestly, I'd waste one of my wild cards if we covered Thriller.
Sure, yeah. Or we could do like a Halloween special.
Yeah,
I'm sure,
yeah. Yeah, we can get an hour talking about Thriller probably. Anyway, this one I had teased this I think in a previous episode where I generally have like a 3 chances rule with movies that are considered classics that don't really land with me. And if it doesn't stick with me after the 3rd one, then I kind of make peace with the fact that I don't particularly care for it.
Did this one stick the landing?
I'm going to save that till we get to the end of our discussion.
Suspense.
But yeah, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to play the trailer for you, and we will be back to talk about American Werewolf in London.
This is the story of 2 young American students traveling through England on a night of the full moon.
Did you hear that? I heard that. What was it? Could be a lot of things.
Fate let one live.
That lunatic must have been a very fierce fellow.
Wasn't a lunatic.
What?
A wolf.
Oh, be serious, would you?
And now everything is changing. Changing.
Good Lord.
John Landis, the brilliant young director of Animal House and the Blues Brothers, has turned a classic tale of terror into something new. Something different.
Excuse me.
A naked American man stole my balloon.
I'm a werewolf.
American Werewolf in London. Something different.
Okay, An American Werewolf in London from 1981, written and directed by John Landis, starring David Naughton from TV's Making It, Jenny Agutter, Griffin Dunne, and every song with the word moon in it that their budget could handle. Amanda, what happens in An American Werewolf in London?
2 American college students on a walking tour of Britain are attacked by a werewolf that none of the locals will admit exists.
Yeah, well...
It might be my favorite summary I've ever found for any of these movies.
That's... I don't know what to say to that, actually, because it's not wrong.
It's not wrong, and it's not even leaving that much out.
Yeah.
It's left out a little bit.
Yeah. But it also, it also sounds like a very different movie.
Yes. Yes, it sounds like it takes place entirely in the village.
Right.
And they're staying there, and they're just like, guys, there was a monster, and everyone's like, I don't know what you're talking about. More tea.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I guess at the same time, though, how much more do you get into that?
Right, without giving shit away.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, anyway. How
about some things you'll find?
Yes. What will we find in this movie?
Some things you will find in this movie include a nurse who misunderstood the Hippocratic Oath.
She clearly has some relationship issues.
Yes.
She's very upfront about her sexual history, which is
7 partners.
7 partners. Was 3 of whom were one night stands or 4? I can't remember. Well, whatever. But she's the fact that she's that open seems like she's not exactly meeting people regularly, I think. So she's just grabbing them when she can get them.
Yeah, just snatching them right out of the ER.
And if that happens to be someone who might maybe not have a visa anymore, that she can shove in her house and just kind of keep them there for a while, it's going to work too.
Cool. Frank Oz as a person.
Always nice to see. That scene where he shows up to talk to I don't even remember what the character's name is.
David.
It is David?
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say David, but that's the actor's name. I wasn't sure.
David is missing. Where's David?
When he comes in to talk to David, all I could think of is imagine being in a coma for 3 weeks and waking up and the first thing you hear is Fozzie Bear.
Yeah.
Talking, not like on the TV, talking to you about your medical history.
Yes. And it's especially funny because he's talking like he's never spoken to another human before.
Yes.
He's the doctor's like, this is the man from the embassy. And he's like, hi. It was like, what? Who's? No. You'll also find in this movie Frank Oz as a puppet.
Excuse me. A Muppet.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Which is halfway between a Muppet, a mop, and halfway between a puppet. But man, that's Homer Simpson's definition of what a Muppet is.
I get it. I was like, this is from somewhere, and I'm not processing.
That Muppet Show clip that they play actually, I guess, is from an episode. That clip, the exact clip that they play, never played in the United States.
Oh.
For whatever reason, it was cut out of the United States version.
The Punch and Judy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when the movie came out, American audiences, I guess the crossover between werewolf movie fans and hardcore Muppet fans, thought that they had made the episodes specifically for the movie. But that's not the case. It's from an episode that only aired in the UK.
Got it. You'll also find a friendship that never dies.
Yes. Well, it's also a friendship that tries to get you to kill yourself.
Yeah, but I mean, you take what you can get in terms of friends.
Yeah.
You're stuck with me. And of course, deeply questionable parenting in this one.
Might not be obvious where this comes in.
I think if you pay any attention whatsoever, it becomes obvious pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Where is this young man's parents?
Right. He learns from the ghost of his dead friend that his parents went to the dead friend's funeral.
Yes.
But as far as we know, they have made no attempt to come see him in England after being attacked by a
right.
How do they refer to
an escaped lunatic?
An escaped lunatic. Yes.
Yeah. And the doctor says, "Oh, we contacted your friend's parents." And we contacted your parents. However, it has also been 3 weeks
Right.
since the attack. And I'm sorry, but even in the year 1981, you probably could have found a flight to London in 3 weeks.
Yeah, especially if your son is
Potentially never going to wake
yeah.
up from his coma? I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
so American Werewolf in London. This is a really interesting movie because it's a werewolf movie from 1981, which something must have been in the air at the time, because in 1981 we had American Werewolf in London, The Howling, Wolfen, and also is it Full Moon High? Is that what it's called? Yes, Full Moon High, which were all werewolf movies. There really hadn't been a ton of werewolf movies.
Yeah, you kind of just named all of the ones I would think of in between, like, the classic era Wolfman and then the more modern, like, mid to late 90s on stuff.
Yeah, the only one, actually, interestingly enough, they mention in this movie, off the top of my head that I could think of, is the one with Oliver Reed, as they mention when David asks the nurse's name.
Alex.
I'm so bad with these names. Alex. I know the actors, but I don't know the names.
See, and I'm the opposite. I have no idea the names of any of the actual people, but I'll remember all of the side characters' names for you.
Yes. That's Curse of the Werewolf. It's a Hammer movie. It's pretty fun. And there's another one. There's another werewolf movie with Peter Cushing from like the mid 70s.
Ooh.
It's not a Hammer movie. I think it's an Amicus movie, which was kind of like the parallel running company that did very similar things to Hammer. That the whole thing is set up as a murder mystery, and you have to guess who the werewolf is.
What?
And it actually has this narration break at the beginning.
Okay.
Where it tells you to watch closely, try to figure out who the werewolf is. And then about 3/4 of the way through the movie, it pauses and it says, a voice comes over and says, "Did you figure out who the werewolf was?" And then it runs through all of the characters. And it's like,
my God.
The heiress to the fortune who disappeared halfway through the night and reappeared, that kind of thing. And then there's a clock ticking thing. And then when it ticks down, the movie starts again and you find out who the werewolf is.
I have to watch this movie.
I think you can watch it like in fast forward because it's not a great movie.
I don't care. The gimmick has got me. It's like halfway between the movie Clue and one of those like mid 90s VHS tape board games.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's very the VHS tape board. That would be a fun Patreon thing if we could find a VCR and do one of those.
In VHS tapes.
I'm sorry. I'm digressing.
Yes.
American Werewolf in London. How do you feel about werewolf movies in general?
I'm not a huge connoisseur of them, but the ones I've seen I tend to like. Like
Sure.
I tend to enjoy a lot of the classic sort of vampires and werewolves and witches and shit. Like there's always like room in my heart for one of those, if that makes sense. Like I mean, I think Ginger Snaps is probably like the werewolf movie for me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, beyond that, I've seen some of the old school black and white, like classic era Wolfman movies, but they've never been a focus for me. I do generally enjoy them and the tropes that go along with them.
Yeah, I've always loved werewolf movies. I think they probably made a comeback in the 80s because the 80s was the renaissance of creature effects, and the big centerpiece to any werewolf movie, this one very much included.
Yes.
Arguably what this movie's most memorable for is the werewolf transformation sequence. And what was so groundbreaking about this one is so much of it happens in camera.
Yeah.
It's a very, very well lit room.
Yep.
And so you're seeing everything happen. They actually, Rick Baker, who did the special effects for this and is sort of the patron saint of monster movie makeup at this point, won the very first Academy Award for special makeup effects.
Oh, wow.
In 1981, which it seems like one of those things where it's like they made it specifically to give it to him.
Right.
Which
right.
He
Like
deserved
we owe this guy something.
Yeah. But yeah, this movie's tough for me because, as I was saying, John Landis, he's primarily known as like a comedy director. Oh, the Three
Yes.
Amigos. Love the Three
Yep.
Amigos. And there's a lot of comedy in this, and it's also really gory.
Yes.
I don't particularly find it scary, but it's very
Right.
like tongue in cheek.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And I really want to love this movie,
Yeah.
but I find so much of it so boring. Like the opening scene when they go to the pub is great. I
Yep.
mean, the introduction of the characters I think is great when
Yes.
when they show up on the sheep truck.
Yep.
And then they go to the slaughtered lamb.
Yes.
You could argue whether or not that's too heavy-handed. A back-to-back of that, I think it works.
I think it works.
You get a little bit of nice classic villager esoteric lore with the pentagram or pentangle. Is that what he calls it? A pentangle?
I think he calls it a pentangle.
Pentangle on the wall with the candles and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it basically just looks like my living room.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
What I do really appreciate about that scene is, and also about the rest of this movie as well, is John Landis has seen enough of these movies that he knows like where the humor lies in them.
Yes.
Without making fun of them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It never feels like the tropes or the stereotypes of these sorts of movies themselves are being like lambasted in any way.
Right.
It's like a loving pastiche.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's clearly made by somebody who's watched a lot of these movies and has enjoyed a lot of these movies, but can also see the absurdity in them as well, I think.
Yeah, like in the scene in the pub, I think the funniest thing about that scene is when when David goads Jack into asking what the pentangle is.
Yes.
Because there's something about I love it when it happens in Jaws too. There's something about someone awkwardly asking the wrong question that kills the mood of a room.
Yep.
Because I feel like everybody's been there where everybody's kind of laughing and chuckling, then you ask a question or say something and then everybody goes silent.
Yes.
And that works really well in this, where it's the guy's telling a joke, they're just kind of like lightening up to these guys, and then Jack asks the wrong question,
right?
Which totally changes the mood.
Yeah, and especially with like the sort of cast of characters you have in there, where they're all such like all of those guys look like they'd be cast as like the one creepy guy.
Yep.
In the pub, or like the harbinger in another scary movie, except this movie cast all of them and put them in a pub together.
Yes. It's where all the harbingers hang out.
Exactly. It kind of is, which is I think why I love it.
Yeah.
I love me a good harbinger.
Yeah, that scene's really good.
I think the werewolf attack scene on the moors is pretty good.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely like obviously a low budget
Yeah.
kind of thing. It's just them walking back and forth across a dark field. But I do think it has that balance of like they're being funny they're kind of bantering with each other, which is like funny for the audience, but they're also clearly doing that thing that you do when you're like nervous but you don't want your friends to know that you're that nervous, so you're just kind of like talking shit and making fun of it.
Yeah.
So it felt it worked for me.
And the one moment that's in the attack scene that I really like, because it's a really interesting choice, is when after Jack gets attacked, David runs away.
Yeah.
Which is not something generally you would expect your main character to do.
Right. It's not like the mark of your like big brave protagonist.
Yeah.
That
And
like,
it's not like he thinks they're both running. He sees him get jumped.
Yeah.
And he runs in the other direction.
Well, they're kind of trying to escape the area because they know something's out there.
Right.
And David's the one to trip and fall.
Yes.
And then Jack doesn't just book it and leave him. Jack stops and helps him up, and that's when Jack gets attacked. And even though his friend just stopped to help him, David, just takes off in the other direction, and then like his conscience catches up with him and he comes back.
So do you think everything that happens in this movie is a metaphor over how guilty David feels about the fact that his friend died? because I don't.
I think if you want the West Tisdale interpretation of this movie, that sounds like a good meta overarching like thematic meaning to this movie, but I don't think that that's what the movie's going for.
Yeah, I don't think that either because he gets over the death of his friend pretty quick.
Well, I mean, if he meets and falls in love with this beautiful British nurse and like,
I guess that'll do it.
yeah. But like, yeah, yeah. David's an interesting character.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I really like up through the attack. Then I feel like I feel like everything just really, really slows down. You've got the stuff in the hospital is pretty slow. The Jack stuff notwithstanding.
Dead Jack.
Oh, he's the best part of
is
the movie.
the best part of this movie.
Yeah.
He's so good. Like, obviously the special effects makeup on him looks amazing. And I think the actor does a good job with it, where he's that like line between like very serious but also like very funny.
Yeah. But it's a lot of David just like hanging around.
Yeah.
He's hanging around in the hospital. Then when he goes home with the nurse, there's literally a scene where he just is bored for like 15 minutes.
Yeah. There's like a montage of him wandering through her apartment.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but like that, like the set pieces and like the high points in this movie, I think are really good.
Yeah.
It's just that middle piece that bums me out, and also I just don't really like David as a character that much.
Yeah, it's tough because I think in a lot of ways we're maybe supposed to attribute some of David's erratic behavior to his werewolfism.
Okay.
I'm not sure. That's kind of like I was trying to figure out how I felt about it, because like I really enjoy this movie. I also don't like David, which is I think part of what makes this movie work for me, in that like, you know, he's going to die in the end.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit like, okay. Like,
yeah.
meh.
Yeah, it's just the stuff that I like, I feel like is so interesting. Like my favorite part of the movie is the last like third or the last act, when basically everything from the porno theater scene on, I really, really like, because you've got that scene in and of itself is great when David is being confronted with all the people that he's killed
while they're sitting in the theater of watching See You Next Wednesday.
Yes. And then after that, you've got a great he turns back into a werewolf, and you get a great John Landis Blues Brothers type car wreck scene, which is awesome. Really, really good. There's one stunt in there where I don't know how. I was going to say I don't know how the actor didn't get killed, but that's not that did happen in another one in Landis's movie, so I'm not going to bring that up. But it's like
away.
It's when the car, there's like a police officer, and the car like does like a sideways slide.
Oh yeah.
Into him.
Yeah.
I don't know how that guy didn't get crushed. Because they're not faking this stuff. Like those are real car. And I love car violence in movies. I absolutely love it. I don't know why, but you take a bunch of cars and you smash them together and blow them up, I'm happy.
We got to go to like a monster truck rally.
Yeah.
Question mark.
Yeah.
That's for another conversation.
Yeah.
No, but I know what you're saying with like the middle portion of this movie. And it's tough because like on the one hand, I appreciate that they have David wake up and they're like, you've been in a coma for 3 weeks.
Yes.
So we just skip the whole like waiting for the next full moon kind of filler that like a lot of these movies I think tend to fall into the trap of. Mm-hmm. But we avoid that and then have no like second act dramatic tension.
Yes. I think that's my big problem.
Yeah. Because at minimum during the day, he's just going to be a guy. Yeah. And the one person he knew in this whole country was Jack, who is dead. Mm-hmm. So there's no, like, I honestly wonder if it wouldn't have been better if, like, you know, his mom did fly in from the U.S. and was like, David, why are you acting this way? And you know what I mean? There's some kind of, like, silly bits with the mom and, like, putting his behavior into some kind of context. Because my question is David this kind of erratic weirdo normally? Or does Alex, the nurse, just kind of roll with it because she's only met him 3 days ago when he woke up from his coma?
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't know what he's like.
Yeah.
Like, when he's with Jack, he actually seems like, if I'm remembering correctly, he and Jack are kind of hard to distinguish.
Yeah, they're very similar looking,
until
yes.
Jack dies. But Jack seemed like the one who was a little more like mischievous, like a little more of a troublemaker, and David seemed like the good kid, you know? So it's like, I don't know. There's some questions for me there where, like, would it have been better to have him in an environment with more people around him who actually knew him and knew how he should be acting and could, like, play off of that? I don't know if that would help, though.
Yeah. The thing, I was, as we were watching it, I think I figured out the change that I would make. And it's because... Make
Alex the werewolf.
Actually, I think that happens in American Werewolf in Paris.
Oh, probably.
Yeah. I really don't care for let's figure out what's going on subplots. Which is what the doctor goes on. And they send the doctor on this back to the village to try and get answers, and it feels weird because you don't really get the sense that the doctor should give a shit about any of this. And And I was thinking the whole time, I was like, why isn't David doing this? Why is because because
the village doesn't have a theater showing See You Next Wednesday for us to end in.
But it's I mean, is that, I don't know if that's supposed to be part of the humor of the thing, is it's like, well, he's with a hot chick now, so he doesn't really care about werewolf stuff anymore until he turns into a werewolf. But it's like it feels like once he starts seeing visions of his dead friend who's telling him he's a werewolf and he has to kill himself, it feels like he should be the one trying to figure out what's going on and not this tertiary character who doesn't really have a lot to do.
Yeah, or at least after the first werewolf night where he wakes up in the London Zoo in the wolf pen and steals a little boy's bunch of balloons.
Yes.
Who, by the way, that little boy manages to be creepier than a naked adult man hiding in bushes beckoning him over. That kid is still creepier to me by far.
Yes.
He was so scary. Scariest thing in that movie is that little boy with the balloons.
Yeah,
I swear.
Little boys who aren't really actors can be very creepy.
Yeah, he terrified me.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe after that first night, if he had woken up and been like, "Oh my God, something is really wrong," I'm not just having guilt hallucinations of my dead friend. Maybe this really is a thing. I'm gonna take Alex, the nurse, and go back.
Yeah, it's it feels so strange that like the movie itself almost feels like it's very aware of the fact that it's just killing time until he turns into the werewolf.
Yeah.
So that's why he's like just hanging around in the apartment.
Right.
It's
having the most awkward sex scene known to man with his new girlfriend.
Well, I don't know if you knew this, but in England, when you get...
you make love?
When you're in the shower, you can get so horny, your arms turn into like marionette arms, and you forget how to use them.
You can't bend at the elbow. You just, at the shoulder, go up and down.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like, it just feels like it's killing time to get to the point where he turns into the werewolf. And like there is...
Oh, I just had a good idea.
What's that?
That one of the guys from the village should have come to London to try to stop him.
Oh yeah, that works too.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
Just have like a Van Helsing style dude who's like from the country, like kind of doing the bumbling country bumpkin thing through London, but also trying to chase down David, who's like, this crazy man from the country is trying to kill me.
They take very little responsibility for the horror they let loose on London by letting him... Honestly, I don't know why they didn't just kill him.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it was like, oh shit, we didn't expect anybody to come take him to London.
Yeah.
We thought he was going to die.
Yeah.
So, yeah, have the chess playing guy show up with like an old-timey shotgun.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Or the dart guy. The dart guy.
Dart guy. You can just throw darts at him until he dies.
But yeah, I on the one hand, I do kind of like the idea that he's at this point kind of completely forgotten about the werewolf thing. So
yeah, because I mean, he doesn't really have a reason to. Like these movies are always weird because they have to light these scenes in the dark so that we can see them. But if you're wandering out in the moors at night, he probably could have been convinced, like, look, it was really dark. You watched your friend get killed. You yourself sustained these injuries, and then you were in a coma, and who knows what that did to your brain. Your brain might just be making up these images of a terrifying wolf because you're traumatized.
Yeah.
And everybody seems to be kind of saying that to him for the first half to 2/3 of the movie.
Yeah.
So like I can kind of buy him being talked out of the werewolf or the wolf story by the cops and the doctor and even Alex being like, that's impossible. And him being like, oh, okay, I guess it is me. I guess I'm just going crazy.
Yeah.
Might as well roll with it.
Yeah, I guess in that case you need somebody to do research. I don't know. It's where I guess I just don't know if it totally works. I like the idea, but for me it does just feel like there's kind of dead air waiting for the transformation to happen. And they fill that dead air. They try to fill that dead air with some interesting things, including a very strange dream of David back at his house with his family until they get disturbed by a knock at the door where 3 or 4 werewolves in Nazi uniforms come in.
Yeah.
And just start shooting up the place and lighting on fire and killing his whole family. And I very clearly remember the first time I watched this movie going, what the hell?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah.
Why is that in this movie?
Yeah.
What is the point of any of this? That was very, very strange.
I still can't really answer any of those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had sort of forgotten how extreme that dream is and that scene is and how suddenly it just kind of happens. So it took me off guard this time. And then I was like, does he just have these visions of like Nazi werewolf men the whole time? Like, did I forget this whole subplot that the werewolves are somehow also Nazis? Like, what is happening? No, it's just dropped after that. There's like one crazy dream of that. And then he has other crazy dreams, but...
Yeah, my read of it this time was that the dreams that he's having are getting progressively more violent. And this one in particular I read as his subconscious telling him that this werewolf thing was going to destroy his life. And he is supposed to be, maybe I'm reading too much into it at this point, but he and his family are a Jewish family. And having these werewolves show up in Nazi uniforms and just completely destroy them, like it's like more of an honest dream than a lot of movies, I think, where it's like it's a bunch of different imagery kind of jammed together in a way that kind of makes sense but doesn't make any literal sense.
Yeah, especially if you take into account that this movie was made in, the late 70s, early 80s, where you're a lot closer to World War II. Like his parents, grandparents, whoever could have been.
Sure.
All right. I mean, I think it's a long way to go for
proverbial ham sandwich.
Yeah, which is one of the weird things like about this movie is that
of many weird. This is a very weird movie.
Yeah, this is a bizarre movie. But maybe I should say instead one of the difficult things about this movie is that it's so uneven. Like the pacing is uneven, the tone is uneven. The amount of thought you have to give to any given like gag or bit or scary part is also very uneven. Like there's some of these things where it's like, yeah, if you look more closely at it, you can come up with an explanation that has some logic behind it for some of these things. But then for other things, you're just like, okay, like what? It's weird to me that you'd have to dig so far to find a way to make that dream make sense in a movie that's very like, look at the werewolf. Look at this. Like it's very heavy-handed in so many ways.
Yeah,
then sometimes it tries really hard to be subtle, and it's just like, so which is it?
Heavy-handed? You mean like the music choices?
Yeah, I do.
Like that, honestly, I remember the first time I saw it, that turned me off too. I was like, right off the bat, we're doing like, guys, it's a werewolf movie.
Let's sing Blue Moon
Every
for the
song,
third time.
every song that we can find about moons is going to be in it because don't forget you're watching a werewolf movie. It's like, okay, you know. I to be fair, at that time, I remember the first time that I watched this. I was like in a, I think I was in kind of a werewolf movie kind of kick.
Okay.
Where I was like, man, werewolves don't get the respect. They never make werewolf movies anymore. They don't got to make a good werewolf movie. And I watched this one, which is supposed to be the best one, and it was like a joke. And I was like, man, why don't they take these guys seriously? So I think that might have bugged me. But it's like
Fair.
I think it's the tone issue.
Yeah.
Is so fascinating because it is so grounded when it's just like a normal, no supernatural stuff is happening.
Yeah.
But it does swing so far the other way into weirdness where like
Yes.
in a lot of movies that werewolf Nazi sequence wouldn't stand out to me because it's, well, I mean, I guess it would stand out to me because it's kind of hard not to, but like it doesn't,
Right.
it wouldn't feel kind of not of a piece of the rest of the movie.
Right, yeah.
And like the stuff with Jack and all of the other ghosts and stuff feels kind of, it doesn't, I guess it's not really out of place, but it's like like you were saying, the tone is just, it just kind of swings all over the place for me.
Yeah, and I think the tone swings and it's also tough where I think people could miss a lot of the humor.
Sure.
In this, like, I think if you don't know going in what kind, like if you'd never heard of this movie before and it was on TV and you sat down to watch it, you'd be like, oh, scary werewolf movie from the 80s at first.
Right.
And it's not until a little further in that it starts getting kind of silly, but it's a very like British sense of humor in a lot of
it's a very British movie, which is surprising.
Yeah, which is weird given, I mean, it makes sense because it's in London,
right?
But it's weird given like who made it and
right
and all of that. So like, I can definitely see somebody watching this movie and getting some of the jokes, but not all of them. And if you're only getting some of them, I could imagine it being like, wait, was that supposed to be funny? Like, why are we having a joke now?
Yeah, like I think the See You Next Wednesday stuff is probably very high on that list.
Yeah.
Because you're having this scene where he's going in to talk to the rotting corpse of his dead friend and be confronted by the people that he's killed.
Yes.
And the movie that they're showing in this porno theater is this really like self-aware porno.
Yes.
Where the first scene is a guy and a girl are getting into it, and then another guy storms in. And
yeah,
he's
like
you
big
can't,
burly dude.
and
comes
he's like,
in.
you can't do that with her. And the woman goes, "You talking to me?" She's like, "Oh no, I'm sorry." And then the other guy goes, "Oh, you talking to me?" And he goes, "No, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong room." And then he leaves, which is really funny.
Well, they say something like the guy who's having sex with the woman is like, "I didn't promise you anything." And he's like, "I wasn't talking to you." And then the girl's like,
yes.
"I've never seen you before in my life." And he goes, "Wait, oh."
Yeah. And then the next one is the next scene is like the
phone rings.
Yeah, they're kind of getting into it, and the phone rings, and it's like a wrong number. Or
yeah.
something.
Oh,
It's
nobody
like,
by that name here.
No problem. Which is really funny, but it's like the juxtaposition is strange, and it's not. I don't dislike the juxtaposition because I do. It does amplify how friggin' weird that scene is.
Yeah, I think that sequence, because it's intercut with David talking to Jack and the other ghosts of the people he has now killed as a werewolf, and they're all kind of weird too, and they're all making jokes, kind of, or like maybe not making jokes, but there's humor to that in exchange with them.
They reminded me a bit of the ghosts from The Shining. They have that same kind of like
cheeky.
Yeah. It's like, oh, wonderful party, is it not?
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah. Where there's like the guy and the girl who he killed going to a party, and they were like, "Oh, Or
Yeah.
you can get a gun
Yes.
and you can shoot yourself. It would be so easy. And they're like kind of gleeful about it.
Right.
But yeah, there's other things that are like played. I can't think of a good example, but there are things in like the middle section that I think are also played for laughs. That if you're like paying a little less attention, you don't quite get, or you wouldn't get, but you'd miss really easily. Because it is kind of like, okay, all right, moving on. Come on. It's like the time you go get your snack or you check your phone or you hit the bathroom.
Right.
Like when the cops show up in the doctor's office.
Right. Okay.
And the cops come in and there's like the older detective who's clearly in charge and his younger partner. And the doctor says to him, "Oh, can I get you anything to drink? Would you like some tea?" And the younger partner is like, "Oh yes, I'd love some." And then the older partner is like, just sits down and like does like a motion or something. He's like, "Oh, maybe later."
Yeah.
You know, it's like kind of silly stuff like that these little throwaway moments.
Yeah, he's taking some of these like tropes and doing the thing they never do, which is when somebody offers you tea, you say, "Oh yeah, I'd actually love some tea."
Yeah.
It never happens. It's always, "Oh no time for that."
No time. Yeah.
Which is, I think that's funny too. But again, those are two characters who are just sort of there. You know how my feeling about detective characters. I don't particularly care for them, but I do like those guys.
You never love a cop subplot.
Those guys were British cops in the tradition of like Abominable Dr. Phibes, where
that is exactly the comparison I was going to make.
Scotland Yard getting taken for a ride in this movie,
all over this list.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough though, because if you haven't sort of just given yourself over to the premise and just been like, all right, horror movie, British comedy, werewolves, go.
Yeah.
Like if you're not sort of if you're not into any part of that, like, let me rephrase that. If there is any part of that you are not into, this movie will not work for you.
Right, sure.
So, like, if you're not into the kind of humor it's giving, even if you like the werewolf stuff, it's just not going to work for you. And if you're not into the werewolf stuff, the humor is not going to be enough to carry it for you.
Yeah.
So it's like it needs to hit the sweet spot in both realms for whoever's watching it, and that's hard. That's
it's very
nearly
difficult.
impossible.
Yeah, the modern horror comedy as we kind of know it was more or less born in the early 80s with movies like this and Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 comes out later, but it is a very specific tone that can be difficult to.
Dead Alive?
Dead Alive was, I think, 1990.
Oh wow, that's late.
Yeah.
Okay.
Later.
All right.
So in werewolf movies, I feel like there's generally two types of werewolf movies.
Okay.
And it comes down to the transformation. There's basically two types of transformation. There's the movie where it's all building to a single transformation, or the movie where they transform a couple of times.
Okay.
And I always find it interesting because they kind of have very different approaches, because I like the one where it's they only transform once, because it makes the werewolf aspect of it be a much more like looming ticking time bomb thing.
I was gonna say, and in that kind of movie, they're usually more motivated by finding some sort of cure or preventative.
Yeah,
like that's driving the plot a lot. Like we have to figure out how to stop this. We have to figure out what we're gonna do. Yeah,
like Ginger Snaps comes to mind, obviously as one of those. And I actually, in my memory, I thought this was one of those, because I forgot that there's a sequence that he changes twice.
Yeah.
I thought it was big lead up to the transformation, and then from that point on, it's over. But at the same time, I remembered the porno theater scene, and so I was like, how the hell did they do that? Because I know he talks to him, so it didn't. I forgot that he actually transforms more than once.
Well, you can be forgiven for that, because not a whole hell of a lot happens after the day after he transforms for the first time. He gets right. There's like some gags of him getting home. He gets home. He's all like horny and whatever with Alex, who's like, we gotta go back to the hospital. Like, what's going on? And then he has his freak out, and then he's in the theater.
Right.
It's a quick day.
Yeah, it is. It's a very quick day. And it's not over until he calls his house
Right.
to tell his sister, to tell the family that he loves them.
I love that. She like doesn't believe.
Yeah, I don't know what it says again. I don't know what it says about David that when he says he loves his sister, she's like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, you liar.
What did you do?
Yeah.
But the transformation sequence, what did you think of the transformation sequence?
I mean, it's so cool.
Yeah.
It's so well done. Like I just it's still very, very, very impressive. It's 40 years ago that this movie came out, and like it just still looks fantastic. Like the whole time I was watching it, I was just like, any werewolf movie, I'm sure there have been werewolf movies in the last 20 years. Like I'm positive there's been.
Yes.
I low budget, not a huge blockbuster, but I'm sure. I mean, even just those stupid Twilight movies, they have werewolves.
Sure.
in them.
Well, there's been like 5 Underworld movies, which always surprises me because I don't know who's watching them, but they keep making them.
People love those movies.
There's a movie called Dog Soldiers that a lot of people mentioned to me as one to watch.
Yep,
I
have heard of that.
2000 something.
Yeah. I am sure that most of those werewolf transformations are CG.
Yeah, I hate it.
Exactly. I was just gonna say, and it just does not compare. There's something. Even when you see this werewolf transformation, you're like, well, yeah, obviously that part's a puppet, and obviously this part's prosthetics, like prosthetic makeup and whatever. It still just looks so much cooler.
Right.
And the fact that it's like a physical, tangible thing in the actual world just makes it much more effective, in my opinion.
Yeah. It also, I think when they do it practically, it makes it feel more deliberate. Like you can't just do it all in one CGI motion.
Yeah, and there can't just be like one weird part where he looks like silly putty. Like it has to be like, all right, if we're starting from this face with these features, how do we get to this wolf face with those features, and like what are the steps in between?
Yeah, and it sells it that it's a painful thing that someone's going through. There's something that they do on Star Trek a lot that it always bugs me. I mean, I know it's the trappings of television at that time and whatever, but they'll have these like horrible body transformations every now and then where it's like, oh, this episode they all got transformed into giant salamanders, or Captain Picard gets turned into a Borg.
Right.
Everything you've seen about the Borg says that is not a pleasant experience.
Right. It's like, let's rip out your organs and put in machine parts.
Yeah, and then at the end of the episode, they're just back to normal and they're fine again. And it's like, I understand it's the TV. You can't do.
Sure.
I mean, now you could.
Limited time, limited budget.
Yeah, back then you can't do 4 episodes of Captain Picard
screaming.
Yeah, getting the shit taken out of him. But it always bums me. It always bothers me because those kinds of changes should be painful and they should be presented as such. And when you have these practical werewolf effects, that comes across, like especially in this movie, that this is a very painful process that is not just something that, you snap your fingers and you got pointy ears. It's not It's not Lon Chaney laying in the moonlight, his face just very, very gracefully turns into a very coiffed werewolf.
Yes, yeah. And even the fact that like when he starts to transform, his hands, like when his hands stretch out, he looks at it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he's like watching this, he's feeling it, but he's also watching it happen to himself, which is like extra horrifying. And I feel like the CG transformations, because they tend to be so quick and so smooth, you don't get that moment of like horror at like what your own body is doing.
Yeah.
Which is like the scariest part of the werewolf thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know how you top the werewolf transformation in this.
Yeah, just in general, I think that's what practical effects bring to the table when it comes to these things is, like you were saying, it's a lot more tangible thing.
Yeah.
Like especially if you're doing some sort of like body horror type stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like like there's a reason why the remake they did of The Thing didn't really work with CGI monsters. It's because like, well, you don't have that visceral connection to something that you know is actually on screen growing out of you or whatever. You know?
That's what I was going to say. I think our brains are way better than we sometimes give them credit for at picking out what's not quite real or not quite right in an image. And so I think there's a level of disassociation that you can have as an audience member, because your brain, even if you're not consciously thinking, oh, that's just fake computer imaging, your brain is going to kind of recognize that for you.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's easier to separate it from the real world, from real life. Whereas practical effects are physically present. They are on the person, or, you know, they are in that scene, in that room when they were filming. So it tricks your brain into feeling like this is real.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me too how, like, even the worst practical special effects from the 80s, because there was a huge boom. Every horror movie had to have some sort of monster, like practical monster dripping with goo or some sort of transformation thing.
Yeah.
Some of them just look terrible. Like they're just bad.
Yeah.
You know, because budgetary reasons or whatever, they don't stand up. But I would take a crappy looking practical monster effect over a crappy looking CGI monster effect.
Yes.
Every single time.
Yes. Yeah. Because there's something about bad, like, these days there's some CGI that's like outstanding, and you can't tell anymore in some cases. But bad CGI is so, it's not only laughable, but it's also jarring. It just kind of snaps you out of the mental state that a good movie is going to put you in.
Yeah, definitely.
And like bad practical effects, you can kind of be like, oh, really? That's it? That sucks.
Well,
it's like you're still in the world. I don't know.
I think to a certain extent, even if it looks terrible, there's a part of your brains that's still going, well, that's just what it looks like.
Yeah.
'Cause it's a thing.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's an actual thing that these people are touching.
That guy
and
is running around with that face.
Yeah.
So that's what he looks like.
Yeah. Does Baby Yoda become the craze that he is if he was just a CGI puppet instead of just being a puppet?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows?
I mean, he is adorable, so probably yes. But
Grogu.
Grogu. Yeah, I wanted to talk about Jack a little bit because I do think that he is the best part of the movie.
Absolutely.
His stuff is really interesting. His makeup work is great.
I also found him, like, I remember the first time I watched this movie being genuinely surprised that he comes back.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was like, yeah, he's dead. Like,
right.
I thought we were going for the sort of more typical werewolf movie that we were talking about, where it's like, okay, now the countdown before the transformation starts, and that's what we're just gonna have. We're gonna have him, you know, maybe feeling kind of weird in the night, you know, having some strange dreams or whatever. But like, then it's gonna be, as we get closer to the full moon, he's gonna start having like night sweats and you know, weird shit. And instead, pretty quickly, we've got Jack just being like, oh, hey, hi, I'm here.
Yeah. And he's the way that he plays it is so great to me, because he's still David's friend, and he's still talking to him like a friend, but he is still also very pissed off about his current situation.
Yeah. I like, he's like, you need to kill yourself, which is just like, I know this movie is a comedy, but if you think about it, like, imagine feeling guilt because like your friend died and you didn't, and now you start having visions of that same friend who is like, you should die. I want you to kill yourself. Like, that's gotta mess with you. That's gotta really fuck with your head.
Oh, definitely. And that's why I was thinking that. I was on this view. I was like, is that what they're going for here? Is this supposed to be like the literalization of whatever guilt he feels? But I don't think that runs through the rest of him.
I think you could probably make the argument for that interpretation. I wouldn't throw it out the window entirely. I just prefer not to.
Sure.
I think this movie is too silly for that kind
that's
like
the thing.
Big overarching
I don't think that
emotional message.
I don't think that through line hangs together.
Right, when we get to the slapstick car like domino rally towards the end.
Yeah, or even like, just the stuff with the girlfriend and like he's not really thinking about anything.
Yeah.
You know, it's just him hanging around in an apartment for a while.
Yeah. By the way, her complaining about her salary. And then like Greg and I were watching this movie and Greg lived in London for a few months. And so he was like, I'm pretty sure that's Kensington, which is like a fancy fucking neighborhood.
Oh, really?
It is high end. Like so for her and that apartment for any neighborhood in like London, it's a big apartment.
Yeah, it was a solid apartment.
It's a big apartment. And we were just like, there's no fucking way. It's like she inherited that. She's got family money, like whatever the explanation is. But her whining about her low salary was just like, not in that apartment. And you're not.
Yeah. What was I think? Was it Single White Female? We were watching last year in our pandemic movie watch where
I might have missed that one.
Oh
no! Wait, yes, no, wait. We did see it, and she's
got like a gigantic apartment in like Soho or something.
Yes, she breaks up with the boyfriend and then moves into her own place in this kind of what's supposed to look like a dilapidated building.
Yeah,
but she's in an apartment with like 20-foot ceilings
and whatever her
like
job was,
floor to ceiling windows, and her job is like painter architect.
Yes, something that like.
Ballerina sculptor.
In any era, she's pulling in what it costed for a place like that. But I mean, that's what's fun about movies.
Yeah. But anyway. So her apartment was very like, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
How did you feel about her as a character?
You know, I was not a fan. It's tough because I feel like I like this movie, and then I talk about how I don't like any of the characters. I like Jack.
Jack's great.
Jack's great.
Yeah.
And like I actually don't mind the doctor. Like the doctor as a character. I'm like he fills the purpose of that trope, that stereotype. Alex is funny because
even there though, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Sure.
It could have been Alex that does the researching about the werewolf. You know, if David's being like, yeah, I think I'm a werewolf, and she's like, that's silly, but I'm gonna go check this out.
Yeah, but just in case, I'm gonna take a quick drive.
Or if he's like, yeah, I'm a werewolf, but it's not really getting to me, and she goes and does the research, and she's like, you should be taking this seriously.
Right.
You might be a werewolf.
Yeah, I it's funny because like whenever Alex is in the hospital as a nurse, I'm sort of like, oh, look at, you know, she's being a nurse. She's doing her thing. And then the minute she's at home, I'm just like, why have you let this guy into your house?
Right.
This guy might be insane. This guy seems like he probably is insane. He keeps telling you that his dead friend is visiting him and he thinks he's a werewolf. You met him 3 days ago when he got out of a 3-week coma. He's from another country. Like, nobody here can vouch for him.
What's the thing she keeps saying to him, that she's very attracted to him, but he's very sad?
Yes. Yeah, and she's like keeps talking about how she's like, I don't know whether to feel very bad for you right now or to find you extremely attractive.
Right.
And it's just like, okay, so you're into men with like problems and potentially low self-esteem.
Clearly, yes.
Like, it's just so weird. It's such a weird collection of opinions to try to shape into a character.
Yeah, which is fine. Like, I think that character, if that's what her character is fine. She just makes bad decisions.
Yeah.
But I kind of wish the thing that I feel is the most ham-fisted into this is the I love you aspect.
Yes.
Where it's kind of paying off.
It would be kind of great if he said it and she went, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. or vice versa, where she's like, I love you. And he's like, lady, we just...
Yeah.
I mean, you're great and
that's
everything.
Nice.
But,
thank you so much.
I guess it's kind of paying off the thing that they set up earlier when they're talking about the Wolfman, where he says, like, I think a werewolf can only be killed by the person who loves him or something like that.
Oh.
Yeah, they when they're talking about the movie, they mention that. So when the love thing comes up later, and then she's like, at the end, she's talking to the werewolf, and she's like, I love you, David. And then, I don't know. But
okay. I mean, sure.
Which is, I assume, why he jumps at her, so they'll shoot him, so he dies, so he doesn't hurt anybody. I don't know. But
yeah. Or he does it because he's a wolf and he doesn't know what he's doing.
Or that. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question about.
Sure.
It's kind of a twofold question. The first part would be, do you like the way this movie does, or maybe I should say does not, handle traditional werewolf lore?
I don't have an issue with it.
Okay.
Meredith seemed to have a big issue.
Yeah, I think she was like, "Where are the silver bullets?"
Yeah, why didn't they just use a silver bullet? Yeah. Well, I thought that this could happen this way, and it's like, okay. I mean, yes, in that movie, sure.
No, but I didn't blame her for asking the questions
definitely.
because, like I think we've talked about with like vampire movies. We kind of these quote unquote rules around these monsters are so ingrained in like the zeitgeist that it's just like, yeah, you have to ask these questions.
Yeah,
like you have to. It's kind of hard not to ask the questions. I do appreciate though that this movie does not try to go deeply into explaining some of them away.
Yes.
Like it doesn't start to be like, well, people think you need a silver bullet to kill a werewolf, but in reality it's blah blah blah. Like,
yeah.
I'm glad it doesn't divert too far into that.
Yeah. Well, they show you right off the bat you can just shoot him.
Yeah, you can just shoot this guy.
It's just, it's not, I guess it's magic to a certain extent, but it's not the kind of magic that requires a silver bullet to kill them. It's like they're just another animal that you can shoot.
Right. But I do want to ask, so when a werewolf kills somebody, they don't die. They die, but their spirit doesn't die. They become undead. They're in this this limbo realm that
I didn't know if you were talking about this movie or in real life.
No. Oh yeah. Well, in real life,
many
werewolves have killed many people and they don't die. No, well, so Jack describes, I'm not living, but I'm not dead. I can't rest. I'm trapped. This is agony. Like, this is horrible. You need to die and set me free. And then there's all these other people that he's killed. So my question is, does every werewolf just collect like ghosts that then follow them around?
I guess.
Right?
Yeah.
So then like the previous werewolf to David, was he being haunted by all the people he killed? Because it seems like a very much like, this is how the system works, David.
Yeah,
like,
it's very
we're
possible.
stuck here until you die, so can you just kill yourself already so we can move on?
Yeah, I would have to assume so, unless the visions of the people he killed are just visions.
Right. They're just in his head.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny because I don't necessarily want this movie to try to explain any of this.
Right, yeah, I would prefer it didn't.
Yeah, no. I don't trust most
You don't want to
movies.
see the prequel movie about the
God.
first werewolf and
Oh my
all of the
God.
people, the ghosts that follow him around?
Only if it's a comedy. Just like a straight up comedy.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. No, but I had to ask what you thought, or if you thought that did play into this potential. It's just his
I think
brain.
it could go either way.
Yeah.
I think what I like about this in that sense is since right off the bat they kind of show you that they're playing by their own rules.
Yeah.
It takes away any, hey, wait a minute, that's not how it works.
Right.
So you can, however it works is however it works. It's
however they say it works is how
exactly.
it works. Yeah.
I think it's actually John Landis who I in some other interview or something, he was like, I asked my son once, I may have mentioned this before, I asked my son, how do you kill a vampire? And he said, well, with a stake through the heart. And I said, no, however the fuck you want, they don't exist. And it's like, yeah. And I think what's funny actually about the werewolf thing is that the things that you mentioned, the traditional quote unquote ways of killing a werewolf with a silver bullet and stuff.
Yeah.
The silver bullet, the full moon, all of that stuff originates from the Wolfman movie. It did not exist before that.
Right.
And that was all written for that movie. And much like George Romero's version of Zombies 20 years later, that just became the template. So after that movie, it was convincing enough in the movie that it's like, oh no, what happens is if you get bit by a werewolf, you turn into a werewolf.
Yes.
When the full moon comes out. And the only way you can kill a werewolf is a silver bullet. Everybody knows that. It's been that way for hundreds of years.
Right.
Also funny.
20 years.
Also, interestingly enough, in the first one, this is nerd corner.
Clay's nerd corner.
In the first Wolfman movie, they don't mention the full moon at all.
Oh, interesting.
It's a later addition.
The
the rhyme that the gypsy says is, even a man who is pure of heart and says his prayers at night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright. They change it in a later movie to and the moon is full and bright. So they added that later. And
Interesting.
That then slipped in and became part of the lore, is that full moon, silver bullet, which is why I think in the first Wolfman movie he changes like kind of indiscriminately when it just becomes nighttime. Nerd corner over for now.
Thanks, Clay.
So there's another scene in this movie that might not stand out to just anybody, but a friend of ours, Meredith, who is watching this with us, it very much stood out to her. And
Yes.
I told her it's the scene where David he's naked, he's stolen a jacket, and now he's waiting in line at the bus.
A beautiful, like, crazy, wasn't it like bright red or something?
Yes, it's a bright red woman's jacket.
Yes.
And Meredith, and they do this pan past the feet of everybody else in the line, revealing his bare feet.
As the British would say, in the queue.
In the queue, yes. And Meredith said, I could write a lot about all of those characters based just on those shoes. And I said, well, if you do, I'll read it on the show. And she actually did.
And she did.
So I want to get into some of her thoughts about this scene. She says the epic early 80s styling is one thing, but also each set of shoes seems to act as a one-act play, a little story within a story. And these are her thoughts. She says, I wanted to... I could talk about each set of shoes for 5 minutes, but here's a taste of my thoughts on each.
Oh, boy.
We have 2 sets of shoes. Classic black head or calf to toe look on both. Maybe some goth folks or just people rocking the unofficial New York City uniform in London.
Goth folks.
But we have one set of shoes facing forward and another pair quite close but perpendicular. One person is looking at the other from an uncomfortably close distance. I imagine they're in a fight, and the person facing forward is giving the silent treatment to the other. The facing forward shoes look like women's shoes, but maybe so do the other ones. Maybe we have the progressive, for 1981, inclusion of a same-sex couple, or maybe the perpendicular person is just telling a secret to the forward-facing shoes, like, look at the mostly naked guy up at the front of the line. I bet he's a werewolf who says I love you too quickly. The next 2 people.
Oh, my God.
Person 1 seems prepared for the London weather with a trench and umbrella, and the shoes are nothing to write home about. But those wide-legged pinstripe pants and casual, not quite man-spreading stance really give me the vibe of a guy who thinks he's the boss of the bus line, kind of like a 1981 Troy McClure. Red shoes, oh man. She's a little put off by the guy behind her, feet together and purposefully pointed away from him. She doesn't want to talk. She doesn't want small talk and doesn't want to hear about the cool swingers party he went to last weekend. I don't blame her. But she's also not totally closed off to it, or she'd be facing all the way forward. Maybe he started a conversation and she's trying to politely extricate herself from, or maybe she's just a little interested and wants to see where this goes. Her little red, almost cowboy shoes are drowning in the billows of jean fabric that had to be cuffed since they're clearly made for someone twice her size and height.
Yep.
The shoes look uncomfortable and really wide in the heels, and that's from someone who regularly wears heels and wedges. I really could go on forever about these shoes. Okay.
Ooh, I like these ones.
Yes, the final grouping. Okay, each of these is like the more put together version of the people standing behind them. Maroon, not fire engine red boots with jeans that fit mostly. Here's our real no-nonsense person in line. I know she has resting bitch face, and I identify with her most deeply.
Yeah, those look like Meredith shoes. I could see her wearing those.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think I would be surprised if she didn't go out and buy those after she watched those.
Got to keep up with that 1981 in London
Yes.
style.
You never know when you'll be in a bus queue behind a werewolf who says, I love you too quickly.
Yes. Happens more than you'd think.
Next is boring business guy. Blue suit pants, brown leather shoes, classic and boring. What's the London equivalent of Wall Street? He's making deals, reading the paper in line because there's no time to waste given his important job.
He's in the city of London.
He's probably having an affair too, but he's taking the bus, so business can't be that good, right?
He's probably having an affair too. I love that aside thrown in. Is there any description of why?
No, it's just great storytelling.
Yeah.
Is what she's picking up on.
Yeah, she just really caught the vibe from these shoes.
And here's a reveal of what a couple of our feet are attached to. David in line, business guy behind him, as boring as I expected, and resting bitch face with the maroon boots. I was right about the resting bitch face.
She was.
If only we could keep going and see all the feet in front of David in line. Even if Clay is the only one to read this, silently in his own head, it was worth it. Well,
wow.
Now everyone has heard it.
Yes.
And I look forward to more insights on the fashion of these movies from Meredith if she wants to write them
Shoe correspondent Meredith.
Thank you, Meredith.
Thank you, Meredith.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. I do have a note that the man who gets killed in the subway is extremely unathletic.
Yes. He's a very long, lanky man.
Yes.
Who just smashes right onto that escalator.
I mean, he barely runs.
Yeah.
He like jogs a little bit.
Like a baby deer.
Yeah. And then he face plants onto an escalator, and then he gets eaten.
Yeah.
So
to kind of wrap up my thoughts on this, I said I was gonna did this past the 3-time test.
New favorite movie?
I don't think so. It just
okay.
It does. It's strange to me because like there's a lot of stuff in it I do really like.
Yeah.
But I don't particularly like the movie, if that makes sense.
You know, it does. I definitely feel like I've run across a couple movies like that on this list where it's like, this has got all the things. This should tick all the boxes for me.
Yeah.
And instead it's just kind of like, meh.
I give it a ton of credit for being like a technical achievement.
Yes.
It is very much like this is the vision of this is a John Landis vision. Like this is not a studio movie. He made the movie, he wrote and made the movie he wanted to make, and I give a ton of credit for that.
Yeah.
Like this kind of tone weirdness is very rare. You're not going to get this very often. But yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't really land with me. I think very close to each other saw American Werewolf in London and The Howling.
Okay.
And I was actually thinking about putting my finger on the scale to do The Howling on our next show until I found out The Howling is not on our list, which I'm very upset about.
Is that a new development? Did we know that?
I could have sworn it was on the list unless I didn't do the Control F correctly, but
I mean, I trust that you're capable of using a computer.
Let's do it right now. So
oh, okay.
F. The Howling 00. Yeah, it does not seem to be on the list anywhere.
What if it's just howling?
Howling.
Take out the.
If it's just howling, let it outside. Nope. We got a movie with Ben howling.
Oh, okay.
But not the Howling the movie.
Interesting, because I could have sworn that we'd even had a conversation at one point where it was on the list, and you were like, "Oh, have you seen this?" And I was like, "No, I've seen American Werewolf in London."
I feel like it might have gotten bumped or something. But anyway,
dun, dun, dun.
The point of that was I have always preferred the Howling.
Yeah.
I liked the transformation scene better.
Oh wow, okay.
The thing I like about the Howling transformation that this one doesn't have is it does a lot of the same practical, like mechanical effects.
Okay.
But it's on someone who's moving, and it's because this one is very locked in.
Yeah.
Like he's on the ground, he's very locked in one position. It's still awesome.
Right.
But in the Howling, you've got someone who's like, it's like he's turning into the Hulk or something. So like he's bursting out through his shirt and like, you know, it's kind of it's
is
really
he kind
cool.
of like smashing around the room or something?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the Howling is equally as weird as this.
Wow.
But in like a different kind of way. There's a really interesting through line of both of these movies where like the sleaziness of the late 70s plays a big part. Yeah. The Howling is also fairly tongue-in-cheek about the movie that it's making. I don't know why werewolf movies in particular are so meta, at least in this era. Maybe it's because they are kind of, I mean, they're kind of silly, I guess.
Yeah, I do think there's something where it's like it's easier to make one of these movies if you're not being sincere.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot harder to do a werewolf movie in a serious tone and have it still be like exciting and entertaining and not just like goofy but not intentionally goofy.
Yeah.
So I get it.
And the fun, if I remember this correctly, the fun trivia about The Howling as it relates to this movie is Rick Baker was supposed to do The Howling, but he did this instead, or he got offered The Howling after he already signed on to do this.
Okay.
So he had his apprentice do The Howling. His apprentice is Rob Bottin, the guy who did The Thing.
Yes, our BFF.
Total Recall, and yeah. So it's kind of fun having a master and apprentice dueling transformations thing.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a Joe Dante movie. It's got we'll watch it eventually. But
Yeah,
I've
we'll
always
get there,
preferred
we'll
The
get there.
Howling. I still think I prefer The Howling.
Okay.
But we'll cover that when we get to it.
Do you think you would have liked this movie more if you had not seen The Howling?
Oh, I don't know.
Just curious if you feel like it sounds like it's tough to not compare the two.
Yeah, it's very difficult to not compare the two.
So if you've already seen the other one and have a preference for the other one,
yeah,
I can see how that would maybe dampen your opinion of this
I can't remember which one I saw first.
Okay.
I think I might have seen The Howling first, but I can't 100%
it's
remember.
not remarkable enough that you're like, aha, yes, of course. Yeah.
But the only other thing to mention is the music. We mentioned the Blue Moon and all the other moon-based songs, but
It's so goofy.
The score is done by Elmer Bernstein, who did Ghostbusters and Airplane and some other John Landis movies. He did The Magnificent Seven. Very famous film composer who kind of had like a second renaissance in his career doing like comedies and stuff in the 80s.
Nice.
But yeah, I think that's about it. This was number, what did I say, 131 on the list?
130 something?
131.
131.
How do you feel about that placement on the list? Would you move it up? Would you move it down? Would you take it off?
I mean, I would. It's tough because, like I was saying, I'm not exactly a connoisseur of werewolf movies. So I think the transformation does a lot of heavy lifting of getting this movie on the top 200 horror movies of all time list. Because as much as I enjoy this movie, whenever I see it, I can't help but giggle. It's a good time. I don't know if I would say it's one of the 200 best horror movies, period.
Sure.
But I would definitely say that monster transformation earns it some sort of spot. I'd probably put it closer to 200 than it is.
Yeah, I think I would. I can, though I don't particularly, I don't think I love it. I can recognize the impact that it had and how it is a solid movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I would. I think I would probably drop it down, maybe like the 150s or something like that.
Yeah. I think that feels reasonable to me.
So yeah, that's gonna do it for American Werewolf. I hit the randomizer button, beep boop boop beep boop 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 boop, and interestingly enough, we just did Jennifer's Body.
Yes.
Next week we will be doing The Invitation, which is number 116 and directed by Karen Kusama, who directed Jennifer's Body.
I'm so excited! I haven't had a chance to watch this yet.
Oh man, I'm really looking forward to watching this because it's one of the I can't remember if someone recommended it to me, or if I'm remembering recommending it to somebody else, but it was one of those movies where it was like, you got to watch this, just don't look at anything up, just watch it,
right?
Like, let it go.
Yeah.
And by the end, I was like, who can I tell about this movie? So I'm very excited to watch that.
Yeah.
But thank you for listening. If you want to support the show, you can do that on Patreon. You can go to the patreon.com/thepenskyfile, where you can sign up for that, and you can. We're actually every month we're covering the Friday the 13th movies. This is a month of August, I think, still when this comes out. So we will be doing Friday the 13th Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan has just come out, which is the finale of the original Paramount movies. We're getting into the weird ones next for the rest of the year.
And just for all of you who have not been listening to those episodes, I can't believe that Clay just said we're getting into the weird ones, not that we've already gotten to the weird ones.
Well,
so
we have gotten into the weird ones, but the The next few are just sort of like whatever they can throw at the wall. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, not that the first 8 were like carefully planned out chapters of a epic or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Amanda, for joining me.
Thank you, Clay.
And we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.